Hi everyone. So this is something that comes up quite often when I'm talking to my clients. We talk about this idea of persistence, right? You want to be able to persist, but you really need the outcome you're going for, whether that's personally, whether that's in the bedroom, whether it's in the business. And so how do you persist without feeling desperate? And that's where this whole, play with the fake it till you make it. Now, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that when you're stressed and when you really need something to come through, the first thing that's going to shut down is your sexual energy. And the reason for that is, and I've said this 1,000 times before, your sex energy is your more life energy. And the last thing you want when you're stressed is more life to deal with. Now, we can talk about it straight up as in you don't want to make normal babies right now. That's why, when there was the depression happened, then afterwards that was followed by the baby boom because things got better, right? So there's baby boomers out there as a result of people living through the depression. And that is something that is part of our fabric, but we deny that part of it because we think about it just in the sense of making babies. But the more life energy is how you get your creative ideas to move past where you are. But when you get stuck in the stress of it, that's cut off. So the last thing you're going to have is feeling charisma, which you need to pull people in, creative ideas to get past where you've already been, and or more life expansion, creation, pulling in the kinds of things that you want. So what we want to do is we want to be able to engage in the fake it till you make it. Now, if you've read the book, The War of Art, The Art of War, I think it's The Art of War with Steven Pressfield, I think is his name. He talks about just write every single day, just sit down and write no matter what. That is how you can employ fake it till you make it in order to get the results you're looking for. The problem is, though, is when you really are faking it because you are lying or where you don't actually believe in what you're saying. So you're trying to sell something you're not behind. You're trying to convince yourself, along with whoever you're talking to in your audience, to get on board with what you're saying. When that happens, that energy is felt. And so they may believe it, they may buy into it, you might use all the best marketing techniques, but there's going to be a little underlying, I don't know if I trust them. So you have to tackle that in your mindset. You have to really figure out, do I believe that, if money was out of the question, if I didn't have to worry about rejection, if I didn't need to get paid for what I did, could I help my clients through whatever it is they're going through? And that's often a question I ask my clients. And as soon as we take the pressure off of how much they're going to charge and whether or not they can close the sale and all this other stuff, they're like, well, fuck yeah, I can. I've done it so many other times. Exactly. So it's a matter of overriding the subconscious sabotage that's happening in the fake it till you make it. So that's why, when Steven Pressfield says, I'm pretty sure this is his name, God, I hope it's right. You just keep writing. It's going to kick in because when you can open the window again to creativity, which is your sex energy, so is your charisma. When you can open that a little bit, then more can come out. But when you're like staying in stress and focusing on stress and everything's going wrong, you're going to get more of that. So even if we can just get you to look outside of that for a second in the smallest way, then we can help you use this energy again and open it up, and then more will start going. Now, the other part is persistence. And this is not just about being annoying and following up with sales and leads and, not leaving anything hanging and sending out the extra email and, persisting with videos and all that kind of stuff. Of course, that's all essential. But what we want to make sure you do is that you are persistent with your mindset. Now, I'm going to come back to this book. It's like my favorite. It's not, but it has such juicy stuff in it. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He has a whole chapter in here on persistence. And what I always say is if this book has lived as long as it's lived and been as popular as it's been, and it has only 16 chapters and one is on persistence, the sustained effort necessary to induce faith, then you got to pay attention. The first line, persistence is an essential factor in the procedure of transmuting desire into its monetary equivalent. The basis of persistence is the power of will. Now, we've talked about willpower before in some of my videos, if you go back, but willpower on its own is not enough. You have to have a burning desire, and that desire has to be harder and more combustible than the doubt and the fear you have around it. That's hard at first. But when you're using persistence to override your mindset that's going to talk you out of it, that's when you start getting the results. And at first, I'm going to tell you, persistence can be minute by minute, because your mind will let you have as many imaginations as you want. Now, it's probably going to be limited to what your belief is. Like the other day I was watching, I don't even know what it was, some kind of YouTube video, and they were showing some person's luxury vacation, and like they were showing, and I thought they were showing me the whole resort. They were actually showing the room, and I'm like, oh, you can live like that. I think it might have been a Diddy video or something. Anyway, all that to say is that wouldn't have been in my imagination because I've never been exposed to that level of wealth necessarily. And so I was like, ooh, I need to dream bigger. Now, when you're starting to do this, if you have an idea you want to do something, you have to be persistent with it. And that means that every single time your mind talks you out of it, you come back to it. Every single time doubt comes in, you override the doubt. And you have to do this, like, if it's minute by minute, you do it minute by minute. I know that when I wanted to leave my corporate job and I wanted to leave in a certain way, the way that I wanted out wasn't looking possible. And people were like, you might have to consider other ways. And I'm like, no, I can do this. And I would sit in meetings and write my affirmations. So I am powerful. I am wealthy. I am successful. I would write those nonstop. So it looked like I was taking really good notes in these meetings, but really I was just doing that. I would drive, and my mind, when I'm driving or in the shower, is, the most able to kind of talk me out of things or to give me great ideas. One of the two happens. And it's just like, because your monkey brain or your pattern is to make sure I'm driving safe. I don't have to think about driving too much. I have to pay attention, obviously, but I've been doing it for a while. So then my thoughts can run because my mind is occupied. My subconscious mind is occupied on doing something. Well, when that happens, if you're not persistent in catching and paying attention to your inner voice, you will be listening to the negative more than the positive. You will be back in your patterns and your sabotage more than you will be seeing the options to get out of there. And so you really have to look at it. Willpower and desire, when properly combined, make an irresistible pair. People who accumulate great fortunes are generally known as cold-blooded and sometimes ruthless. That's why a lot of people can't stand Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Often they are misunderstood. What they have is willpower, which they mix with persistence and use as the basis of their desires to ensure the attainment of their objectives. So people think that they're, single-minded, and I've often heard that you have to have a burning desire. That burning desire becomes before almost anything else. I would say the only thing that, and even then, like some of these people are overriding, the care of their children, I would say. I'm not saying you have to do that, but when you use willpower and persistence, no matter what sabotage, and it comes in layers, right? You've seen me do this analogy before, where, this is you and this is your goal, and you have an elastic, and everybody has this, right? Depends on what level you're at. So you might feel the resistance here at first, right? But if you keep persisting, okay, then you can get a little bit more out. But eventually you're going to come back in. You're going to stay in this kind of comfort zone. And the reason for that is because it doesn't feel comfortable out here. This doesn't feel good pulling against that, right? Because it's resistance. But if you are persistent and use your willpower in your imagination and to really believe that something is going to come through, that you really can get the clients you want, you really can have the outcome you want, you really can have the bedroom satisfaction you're looking for, you can have the level of business that you want, you can have a personal life that lights you up and you can't get enough of. You're not trying to escape with, alcohol or anything else. Like, you really want to feel good about your life. You want to have this connection with God or universe and spirit. You want to be in tune with your intuition. If you're not used to doing that, it's there available for everyone. No one is more intuitive than anyone else. It's just we have layers of belief and, shame and guilt covering it up. But if you want all of that, you have to be able to feel this kind of resistance and keep going anyway. Now, I don't really want to break this elastic, but if I was to keep going, like if you were working with me as your client, what would happen is, and this happens fairly early on, this would break and you would go flying towards your goal and you would achieve it, probably surpass it. Usually that's what happens. But then there's going to be another layer, another level. And you're either going to come back into your comfort zone or you're going to have this same kind of resistance. Now, persistence is what lets you get past that on a regular basis. And you cannot achieve it without being like, a dog with a bone with this. Like, you really have to be unequivocally set on achieving it. And that means that, you know, if it's 2 hours before your deadline to achieve your goal, you're still at it. You're still working at it. You tell your kids, or you tell, you know, friends, listen, for the next week, I'm focused on this. You can send me things that bring me down to the positivity, but unless you're dying or bleeding, I need to focus on that. Sorry, you can hear my dog in the background. This is my sole focus. And when you do that, you're able to really push that elastic even more and get to a layer that you couldn't have before, right? See how already this is more stretchy because I've pulled it out before. And you want to keep going past that resistance, but you have to be like laser focused on this in order to do it. And that's usually where people give up, to be honest with you. It's not like, you know, some incredible thing stops them. It's because they do not stay persistent or stay hyper vigilant about their mindset. Because a lot of times these things that are stopping you seem like real life things that you need to worry about. Kai. Sorry, my dog. So, you know, you want to be able to make sure that you can do this. Now, here he says the persistence is a state of mind, and so it can be cultivated. Like all states of mind, persistence is based on definite causes, including, I'm just going to read the highlights instead of reading the whole thing, but there's 8 of them. Definiteness of purpose, desire, self-reliance, definiteness of plans, accurate knowledge, cooperation, willpower, and habit. And I would even suggest the previous 7 lead to number 8 being number 8 being a habit. You have to be able to do this if you want to achieve something completely different than what you've been allowed to achieve before, than what your mind is telling you is possible. Because if you're not persistent, your mindset, your sabotage, your shame and your guilt, your previous layers that you've stopped at, where this elastic was able to trip you up, will get even more sophisticated. It will be even more hard to pull past here, but you have to be able to move past it. And that's where sometimes faking it until you make it comes in. So if you've set a goal that you're going to do 10 lives in 20 days, then no matter what happens, you have to do it. You could be down and out. And I don't think that you need to move past it. Like, I don't think you need to push past, like that's very masculine energy focused. And I think you can do this from your feminine energy. But what you have to remember is that if you're trying to be in your feminine energy and that's not a familiar place, then you're going to talk yourself out of some of this persistence that needs to happen. Because it feels so foreign, or you're going to think you have to work harder. This isn't about, persistence is not necessarily about working harder. Sometimes you have to, but it's just about believing it and staying in your feminine energy if that's where you need to be, no matter what happens, if that's where your focus needs to be, or that's, you know, you're trying to achieve it in that way. But you have to get clear on what that is, and you have to persist no matter what. So let me know if this resonates. If you have read the book, if you have any questions, or if you want me to dive deeper into this, but where is it that you can go through? Now, the last part and how I opened this was about desperation. When you really want something, that desperate energy kind of undermines you. It kind of cuts you out, and it makes you believe that, you know, I'm so desperate, if I don't get this, something else will happen. When you start to feel that anxious, you know, desperate energy come up, write it out, journal about it. What are you feeling anxious about? If I don't get this amount of clients, this will happen. If I, you know, I'm just a failure because I've tried this before and it's not worked, blah, 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 whatever comes up, and then challenge it. Once you challenge it, it kind of takes the wind out of the sails. Doesn't mean there's not going to be more blocks or more things that come up, but by challenging it, you are able to stay present and true to what it is that you're looking to do. So try that. Let me know in the comments how this works for you, and I will talk to you later.